This is Kathryn Goetzke, host of the Hope Matrix podcast. We are here to share science, stories, and strategies for how to hope. I'm the Chief Hope Officer of the Shine Hope Company, and Shine is the mnemonic for how we teach hope. So when we talk about hope, we talk about how we use stress skills, happiness habits, inspired actions, nourishing networks, and eliminating challenges, which are our thinking patterns that get in the way of our ability to hope. Hope is a skill. You can measure hope, you can teach hope, and you can start practicing skills to activate higher hope in your life today. And on this Hope Matrix podcast, we aim to bring in guests, experts in science, people with stories, and those that have strategies for activating hope in your life. I am super excited to have you all here today and on the Hope Matrix podcast, which I am rebooting, and I'm super excited to be starting with this first guest who is so inspiring, has touched my heart, changed my life, is such a mentor to me, has a really incredible story, and is changing the lives of people around the world, both adults and kids. We have Scarlett Lewis, who is the founder of the Jessie Lewis Choose Love movement. She does this in her son's honor, and he does a lot of this too with you, this work. And I'm really excited to have you here today and share your story with all of our listeners and share how you're navigating what was such a traumatic and life-altering experience for you and using it to drive such profound change in this world and change that we need in this world today. So thank you so much for being here, and thanks to all the listeners for listening in to hear this. So how are you today, Scarlett? It's so great to connect with you.
Oh my gosh, I'm your inaugural podcast. What an honor. This is so exciting because your message that you're putting out about hope is so important, and I am 100% behind it.
Thank you. And I am behind, love is so critical to hope. And, with what you went through, it would be so easy to just give up on this world and to climb under a rock and, never reappear, just live and not do such profound things to drive change. So I'm really excited to have you here and to have our listeners learn from you and learn from what you're doing and about love. When you think about love is, as you say, a choice. But I want to first start by just diving into your story a bit more. And, to all the listeners, it can be triggering. So hold on tight and take care of yourself in this process. And, but it's important that we dive into the story and into what happened because there are so many important lessons throughout it. So if you'd be willing, Scarlett, to just share more about what started this movement in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do also, with that trigger warning, I do want to say to your audience that we will navigate all the way to the other side to love and hope. And you will walk away today with knowing how to choose love, connection, belonging in your own life as a thoughtful response to anything. So yes, my story starts, or this chapter in my story, I should say, starts 11 years ago, December 14th, 2012, when my 6-year-old son was brutally murdered in his first grade classroom alongside 19 of his classmates and 6 educators in what is still the worst mass shooting in an elementary school in U.S. history.
Wow. And this is happening across schools now at unprecedented rates.
Unfortunately, when I started out, I would speak to crowds and I would say, this can't be our new normal. But 11 years later, it's normal and we expect it. And that's a dangerous place to be, because what happened at Sandy Hook was 100% preventable. And I don't understand why more people don't say that, but every school shooting, every act of violence, most of the suffering is preventable with some essential life skills taught to be able to manage a grievance. But going back to that day, I was devastated. I was in shock. I remember walking back to, I was at work that day. I was the only single parent, and I had heard at work, drove to the firehouse where all the kids were, taken and supposed to be picked up by their parents. A lot of us left without kids. And I remember walking back to my car and with my mom, she lives across town, and looking in the back seat and seeing that car seat and thinking, I don't need that anymore. There is no 6-year-old to sit in that car seat. Devastating. It was so painful that I thought I was going to dissolve. That's how I've been describing it. It's like, it must be like losing a limb and you have phantom pain, for a long time or the rest of your life, because that limb you were born with, you were supposed to have it. You keep trying to use it. It doesn't make sense that it's not there. It was just absolutely devastating, as I'm sure everyone can imagine listening. And I went home after a few days because, I thought I'm never going to be able to go back to my little farmhouse where I raised my 2 boys as a single mom. I'm never going to be able to go back and see Jesse's boots and coat and little PJs thrown on the ground where he left them that day, toothbrush by the sink. Like, I'll never be able to go back there. But I had to go back actually to get his clothes, to dress him in the casket. And I'm sorry, I know this is very triggering, but it's things that people never think about. I never thought about, but it's a reality these days that people have to face, and not just with school shootings, with all the violence that's going on. And really, this is a call to action as we move through this. There is something you can do. There is hope. I just want to say that right now, even as you're listening to this incredibly painful story, I went home, and on my way out that day with a handful of clothes, I saw a message that Jesse had written on our kitchen chalkboard, 3 words: nurturing, healing, love, phonetically spelled. And it stopped me in my tracks. It stopped me in my life, because I saw those words and something was downloaded into me, really this incredible realization that was the solution, that it was nurturing, healing, love, that if, and this is going to seem so obvious, if the former student who perpetrated the crime, Adam Lanza, if he had felt good about himself, the tragedy would never have happened. Oh my God, so simple. But of course, simple isn't always easy. If he had been able to give and receive love, if he had had connection, belonging, the tragedy would never have happened. And it was so simple to me. In that moment, I was watching all these other reactions and anti-movements and hate and anger. And it was like, no, it all boils down to nurturing, healing, love. And I found my purpose in that moment to spread this message. And here I am 11 years later, and me, now we've become dear friends, and this is what I do, 24/7, and with gratitude and joy and awe in my heart, wonder as it unfolds. But that message changed my life, and that is the message that we enhance in schools, homes, and communities across the country. In fact, it's the only programming that focuses on love.
So much to unpack there. And before I dive into the programming and what you're working on and how we teach love, I want to go back. When we have traumatic events and this is of the most traumatizing, our stress response, and this is, one of the first things we talk about when we talk about hope, our stress response can stop us in our tracks to getting to hope. And so as you were going through that time, what kind of skills, we call them stress skills in how we teach hope, but how did you manage the rage, the sadness, the fear? How did you manage those in ways that weren't, further destroying your community, yourself, Jesse's legacy, all of that? What did you do in those moments? How did you take care of yourself and yeah, I think Jesse's legacy too.
Yeah, such great questions. So I started by being present in the moment, and that might seem counterintuitive because it was so painful. I'm talking at the firehouse. I focused on being present in the moment, and mostly because my 12-year-old son was with me, and I knew that he was looking to me to figure out how to navigate this. And I wanted him to do it with strength and grace. And I knew that I was the one that would teach him. I'm a single parent. I was present, and I was present for him. And that understanding that I was modeling in the moment for him how to move forward, and that he was going to use what he saw to face every pain that he would have in his life. It made me rise to the occasion, and it made me be the best version that I could be given the skills and tools I had at the time. And then I had another experience, Kathryn. I went to my mom's because I told you that I couldn't face going back to my house. And so JT and I went to my mom's house, and because of the public nature of the tragedy, we had a lot of benefits to that. We were assigned a first responder counselor, basically, to each of the parents that helped them navigate this process through the wake and the funeral and the first few days. And she actually brought with her a woman who had lost a son to violence 20 years prior. And I was not really understanding like how I was going to move through this. I didn't know if I'd survive at that point, honestly. I was trying to do the best I could for my child, but the pain was so great. And I was really interested in talking with this woman to hear how she navigated. And first, my first thought was, oh, she's 20 years out. Okay, so she lived. That gives you some perspective of where I was mentally. So she starts telling me her story. And about 5 minutes in, I'm like, I just raised up my hand. I'm like, oh, I just thank you for coming and for, sharing your story and for being here with me. It means so much. But I realized in her sharing her story that was not going to be my story. That my choices from that moment on were going to determine how my life would be. And I was already thinking, oh, I have this 12-year-old son. I want him to have a good life. I don't want him to be another victim of Adam Lanza. Already he was called a survivor, surviving sibling. I didn't want him to be another victim. And so how was I going to model not being a victim? I didn't want to be a victim of Adam Lanza. And I knew that going down the path of anger, hatred, revenge was going to put us on the same level. I knew that using my voice to fight against something was not something I wanted to do. And Jesse's message really directed me. I wanted to be for something, for the most powerful element in the universe, and that is love. And so, those things I think really early on, and by the way, not knowing what I know now, all the neuroscience behind everything that I'm talking about, those things really helped me with my perspective. I realized, wow, there's no roadmap to where I'm going. I can create one. My life, despite what happened, it doesn't matter. And actually, not even despite, because of what happened, I can reset right now everything in my life. And my life can look exactly how I want it to in the future. So what do I want? And it was almost like a little bit of, it was devastation, but at the same time, well, hope, hope for a better future, and that I had a role in that, which is my definition of hope. I had hope after speaking to that mom and realizing, no, I determine what my future is, and that's not what I want. But now I can think about what I do want. What do I want for myself and my son? And the other thing was that blame, finger pointing, fault finding didn't work for me. And I saw a lot of that in the aftermath. Um, it didn't even, like, I know that Adam Lanza and his mom are responsible, but the way that people were, blaming just them for what was and is a societal issue that impacts way beyond Adam Lanza and his mom. It had happened before. And I didn't know then, but it was going to happen hundreds and hundreds of times after. In fact, it was going to become our normal. Well, wait a minute. Is that Adam Lanza and his mom's fault? No, yes, they're responsible 100% for that heinous crime. But I had to take my part of the responsibility for what was going on, not only in my community, but in my world. And, I think it's a really important thing that we pull in what's happening today. And, I look out and I see all of the anger and the blame. And I think, well, that's not getting us anywhere. Things are escalating and getting, I guess, I could say worse. Well, so how do we navigate that? What do we have control over? That's the question you ask. It's a question I ask myself. I have control over me and my choices. And those choices are powerful. And I know that now. I didn't know the extent of that before, but I know how powerful one human being can be when they choose to be part of the solution. And that's what I'm trying to promote, that love, that hope. Those are the solutions.
I think first, I want to acknowledge in your book, you talk so much about the skills that we teach in our Shine framework, but specifically how you use them for yourself, for healing for yourself, like how you managed all of the fear, your anger, and how you got support for that. Learning new modalities of healing, but really diving deep into your own healing so that you could lead by example and you could teach others. And I want to commend you on that. So many people jump into action when they're in despair, through that anger and rage and pointing fingers and blame and shame, and don't do the work to work on the self. And when we come from a shaming, blaming, angry place, we generally don't create the solutions that we need to see. So,
but we're not in control. When we're blaming somebody else,
yeah,
they're in control.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to be in control. As the head of my household, I wanted to be in control.
Yeah. So it's so commendable and inspiring that you did that. And I, really want to dive into the end part, the nourishing networks and the love part, because that's what you got to, and that's the message, and that's really what you teach. And it's so critical right now. And when anyone might think about what you went through, and your ability to forgive, and the depth, of your spirit and soul that allows that, and the grace, and now what you are teaching in the world, I would love to dive into really, how do you teach love? What is love, and how do you teach it, and what is the formula?
Yes, because I want everyone to walk away with it and be able to start using it right away. And I'll tell you how I came up with this formula. But love is really the way that we use it, connection and a deep, deep sense of belonging. It's personal responsibility. It's loving yourself so that you can love others. And the formula came from Jesse's message of nurturing, healing, love, as well as his example of courage. So that day, when Adam Lanza shot his way through the glass doors of Sandy Hook Elementary School, he made a left down the first grade hallway. He was looking specifically for soft targets, and he knew where they were because that's where he had attended first grade himself. And as he made that left, the principal and guidance counselor were in a meeting room with a parent on the right side of the hallway. They came out and he gunned them down. And then he went left into the classroom that was directly across from where they were meeting, and that was Jesse's classroom. And he continued shooting, and his gun either jammed or ran out of bullets. And it was during that short delay that Jesse stood up to him and told his other classmates to run, informed, guided his other classmates to run. And he is credited with saving 9 of his classmates' lives. Before losing his own, we believe Jesse didn't run because he stayed by the side of his beloved teacher, which is where he died. And so
Can you describe Jesse in that moment to us? How old was he?
yeah, Jesse was 6 years old. He was in his first grade classroom. Wow, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And, I talk about that courage age appropriately because that is the same capacity for courage that we all have. And the formula starts with courage because we know that courage is the most important character value. And it's the one that underlies everything that we do every day. It's the choice between love or fear that we are making from the time we wake up until the time we go to bed. And science says that courage is like a muscle. We have to practice it to strengthen it, and we can. And so the formula starts with courage. This is what we teach. Kindergarten, I say kindergarten to prisons because this is a universal program with a universal language that applies to every human being, which is why we're in 120 countries and every state. Courage is so important. You have the capacity for the courage that Jesse showed. And I'm not talking about in a similar situation because you are more likely, thank goodness, to be struck by lightning multiple times. I'm talking about the courage that it takes to pause between what's happening and your thoughtful response and to choose love in your thoughtful response. I'm talking about the courage that it takes to be kind to someone that's not being kind to you, to do the right thing instead of what's just easy. I mean, there's so many ways to practice courage, to tell the truth, every day, all these things take courage. And then the second, and this, by the way, this formula leads you to being able to thoughtfully respond with love in any situation, circumstance, or interaction. It actually brings your locus of control, your location of your personal power back inside you where you can make those decisions, where you can choose love and where you have hope ultimately. So then the next character value is gratitude. So now we're getting into, and for those of you who can't see but can only hear, I have a sweatshirt on that has Jesse's message. I always have the words on my body somewhere. So then we get into nurturing. Nurturing means loving kindness and gratitude. So the next character value is gratitude. It takes courage to be grateful, especially when things aren't going your way. And so you see that these are actually in neuroscientific order. So each one grows upon the other and fortifies you with the strength to do the next. Gratitude, the practice of gratitude, we know fortifies you from the inside out to manage pain with more strength and grace. And so gratitude and that practice, we know that it's not, of course, everyone's heard the quote probably that it's not happiness that makes you grateful, it's practicing gratitude that makes you happier. We use gratitude as a way to shift the focus of your lens from negative, which is, by the way our brains are wired with our negative bias, to positive, because you can only think about one thought at a time. And so when you're thinking something negative, you can shift to positive by thinking you're something that you're grateful for, and there's always something to be grateful for. So that is fortifying you, this consistent practice of gratitude, to be able to consider the next character value, which is forgiveness. And yeah, deep sigh, right?
I know.
Man, especially with this story, right? Forgiveness. Are you kidding me? Well, by the way, that's one of the synonyms for healing. Healing means forgiveness, and forgiveness is healing. And I chose forgiveness. And by the way, that's not always popular with people. But here's the thing: I know the benefit that forgiveness had on myself. Forgiveness is a ticket to freedom from pain and suffering. And this practice of gratitude fortifies you to consider forgiveness. And forgiveness is so misunderstood by so many big kids, adults. But when you teach it to kids, they get it. And they practice it every day. And it helps. One of the number one benefits of having a skill that is forgiveness is healthy relationships. And we know that healthy relationships are the key to happiness, per Harvard University's longest ever study on human life, the Grant study, that showed that healthy relationships are the key to happiness. And by the way, we're not born with that ability. And where do we learn it? Oh, yeah, our parents. And Kathryn, my story with my parents. I didn't learn it there. I didn't learn healthy relationships there. And so then I didn't learn them in school. I didn't learn them at work. And I wasn't able to have healthy relationships. I had 2 kids, but not with healthy relationships. So I get to be an adult that doesn't have the skills and tools to give my kids. I loved them, but I couldn't teach them these essential life skills that would lead them to being the best version of themselves. So forgiveness, so important, a pathway to dropping anger, hatred, resentment, revenge, and to having the freedom to move forward with your personal power and integrity intact. And then that enabled me to have the courage to step outside of, have an outward focus with everything that was going on, not only my own pain, there are painful things that happen in life, to me still. But there's also distraction with this thing, and so much going on, and to be able to have that outward focus to help other people, to use what I've learned, the wisdom in that learned experience, to help other people. That is compassion in action. That is the 4th character value: to have the courage to see, to learn from that pain, to know pain has a purpose in our lives. It's there to teach us lessons, to help us grow, to strengthen us. It's actually called post-traumatic growth. And most people don't know that. So there's so much fear around this pain that is present in everyone's life, by the way. It's a human condition. The want and need to love and be loved connects us all, but so does pain. So if we can have a formula, if we can have hope to understand that that's there for a reason, and that it serves us and that it can strengthen us, then we release some of the fear. And fear is what exacerbates pain and inhibits healing. So this understanding that, yes, everybody listening has gone through pain, but it's there for a purpose. It was there for a purpose. It's going to be there for a purpose. Figure it out. Pause, have the courage to pause and get curious about why it's there and how you can use what you've learned to help and serve others. And by the way, I honestly think that is the key to life. That's why we're here, to love and support one another. That's actually what Charles Darwin concluded in his research. We all say survival of the fittest, right? Well, he didn't conclude that. He concluded survival of the most compassionate. And that makes way more sense. And by the way, it's a way better way to live your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're either taking our pain and destroying ourselves or other people, or we're using it to fuel our purpose and drive change, create change. Okay, so the formula, 4 things again, just repeat them so that people know the 4 things, the character values for love.
Yes, for choosing love.
For choosing love, right?
For being able to thoughtfully respond with love, to maintain your personal power or to control your state, not to be victimized in situations, but to enhance them, to elevate them with love. It's always the strongest response. And the formula is courage. And you have the capacity for courage. You need to practice it. You can do that by using things that I did, like breathing, coming to the present moment, taking personal responsibility, thinking about the choices that you make every day. And, I have this little, somebody gave me this little Christmas ornament. I still have it on my desk. It says, where you are a year from now is a reflection of the choices you choose to make right now. Have the courage to make those choices that are based in love, because the outcome of choices based in love or fear look vastly different. So then there's gratitude. Focus on being grateful. Before I open my eyes in the morning, I say, thank you for another day to serve. And your will be done, not mine. Thank you for another day to serve. I wake up before I even open my eyes, grateful. And I go to bed that way. Thank you, thank you, thank you in my prayers. And then forgiveness, that strengthens you to consider forgiveness. And forgiveness starts with a choice. It's a choice, then it becomes a process. You can make the decision. You might be listening today saying, gosh, I don't want to be weighed down by the anger, hatred, resentment that I have. I see how it's limited my life. I see this thing that happened in my childhood and I'm still holding resentment and it's still negatively impacting my relationships. I want to let it go. I'm keeping this anger, hatred, and resentment. The thing happened. And yes, it was painful, but I'm holding on to the pain. I want to let it go. And I don't know any other way than forgiveness. You can make a choice right now. I want to cut that cord to pain. And doesn't mean that, it's a one stop thing. It becomes a process. It's something that you continue to work on. You continue to make that choice. When you have that memory come up, you use your gratitude to shift away from it. There are different skills and tools that Shine Hope teaches, that Choose Love teaches, that moves you away from that. And then, by the way, once you do that, you're in control. And that gives you the ability to step outside of everything that's going on, not be so inwardly focused. Inward focus is also responsible for loneliness. It's responsible for depression. It's responsible for, a lot of negative things that we're seeing in our society right now. But even if you feel those things, and by the way, we all feel them every once in a while, it's totally normal. But even if you're feeling those things, the number one thing to do is have the courage to look outside yourself and ask the question, how may I serve? How can I do something for someone else? And that in turn, and this is what science says, helps and heals yourself. That is choosing love. And a lot of people say to me, oh my gosh, how, every day you go through the story and you're talking about this and you're traveling and speaking about it. It must be so painful. And really it's that compassion in action. Every time I share the story, it helps and heals me. It's the number one most healing thing. This formula, I live it every single day. And so write it down: courage plus gratitude plus forgiveness plus compassion in action equals choosing love. It gives you the ability to thoughtfully respond with love in any situation, circumstance, or interaction that can happen in your life. It gives you the personal power to do that. And that way, no one's controlling you. Pain is not controlling you. You're not reacting from a darker place. You are choosing what your future is going to look like. And let me tell you something. You started out this whole podcast, Kathryn, by saying you could have crawled under a rock. And, that may seem like the easiest thing to do. And I see other people doing that, but that is a very, very painful choice. You know what? Now, the listeners, now you know it's a choice. And you know what? You can never take that awareness back. Now you know it's a choice and that you can choose love and hope instead. And by the way, the choice of love and hope is the path to flourishing. It is the path to being the best version of yourself. And before we even hit the record, we were saying you have one life. One life. And I know better, and you know better, Kathryn, than anybody else, or we have credibility in saying that we have one life and we want to live it the best possible way. And I'm telling you, the best possible way is serving others.
And you are such a shining example of that, of serving others.
As are you.
It's incredible what you've done. And we'll talk a little about the work in the world. I want to first just state that, and getting back to this being preventable, completely on board, agree, 100% preventable. One of the things we're seeing with kids in schools in our work is that 50% of kids, we have them identify one trusted adult in their network, someone, that they can count on that cares about them. 50% of our kids can't identify one person. And, do you think Adam Lansing had that one person? Do you think he felt that nurturing, healing love? Do you think he had hope for the future? Was he taught those skills? I mean, to me, I think as a society, we are to blame for not teaching each and every child these skills, these things, and being trusting, supporting, loving adults in their lives. And that's the only way we are going to prevent these tragedies. It's not going to be locking up guns, restricting things. It is going to be teaching these skills and seeing these kids and having these kids feeling loved, feeling hopeful for their future, and having the skills and tools they need to get there. So,
well, I think we could look at how all the anti-movements have turned out, all of them, because what we focus on grows, and it has grown. So addressing the root cause of the suffering that leads to not only violence, but substance abuse, mental illness. That's the way to go, because, by the way, we can reduce and prevent the suffering before it starts by teaching these essential life skills. It just makes so much sense. And no, Adam Lanza did not have these skills and tools. I verified that he wasn't taught them at school. He definitely wasn't taught them at home. So he didn't have them. He did not have a trusted adult, unfortunately. He was online a lot with terrible influence, and he was in a very dark space. I know that if he had been taught these skills and tools, that there is a great possibility that he could have grown through his suffering. He was bullied, he was neglected, he was most likely sexually molested. I mean, all the things, pain after pain after pain, and he has no skills and tools to be able to manage them. So we know that that pain grew into the attack. Hurt people, and that's the bottom line. And he was hurting so much that he was looking for soft targets to take his pain out on. And we see that every day, by the way, in our society. So yes, it is time to stop pointing the finger from, behind the handle of whatever social media you're on, blaming other people for what is all of our reality. It is time for us to take responsibility. This is our world. It is our leaders' world too. But if you're waiting for them to come in and fix this, nobody's coming. Calvary's not coming. Okay. It's going to be us. So take responsibility. And here's the cool thing about this, Kathryn. You're like, wait a minute, it's not my fault what's going on in the world. But guess what? I'm not saying it's your fault, but I am saying that you are responsible for the world that you live in. You're responsible for your environment, your culture, what happens. We all are. And we have to take responsibility to be part of the solution. I did that early on in my first interview. I said, I take responsibility for what happened in my community, my part of the responsibility to my son. And in that way, I can be part of the solution. And it was the best decision that I ever made, because in making that choice, I was able to take my personal power back. I was no longer a victim. I was actually doing something to be part of the solution. And we know that it's in that action component overrides anxiety. It overrides a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. And I think that's the call to action now with everyone listening. Please share this podcast, share this concept. Not many people are talking about it. More people than not are out there continuing to, when you're given an outlet for your fear and your fear that's stoked each day by the media and your anger, that may seem like the best path. But and you may say, oh, this has nothing to do with me. But by the way, you can no longer say that you're not impacted by what's going on in our world, because you are. You know somebody that's been impacted by violence. And if you don't, you know somebody that's impacted by addiction or mental illness. So by the way, it kind of is all of our responsibility, and we need to step up and just take it and do one thing. So, like, it could be smiling at somebody, but with intention. You know what I mean? It could be asking a neighbor that is a shut-in if you can help. It can be something small. It can be doing something for your child's teacher, but do it and then reflect on how it makes you feel. That actually increases your self-esteem, the way you feel about yourself, and your self-confidence, your belief in your abilities. And by the way, the next step is easier. And all of a sudden, you are not a victim, but you're part of the solution. And people are watching you. There's science in this. People are watching you do this, and they want to do it as well. So you're creating a ripple effect. My goodness, if we could get to a pivotal point where more people are doing that than not, we could change our world. And by the way, it is what's going to change our world. It is the only thing that is going to change our world. So please get on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And bring Choose Love to the schools.
Please bring Choose Love to the schools. Kathryn, I made it free. And I know you and I have talked about, if that's sustainable, but it has been for the past 11 years. And I did that because I wanted everyone to have it. And because these were essential life skills for me, they helped me get through my tragedy. Everyone has pain. And I invite everyone to join the movement. We have a membership that you can join, and you can become a part of it. And even if you don't partake in the activities, you just have the feeling that you know that you've done something to be part of the solution. And let me tell you something, that is so much a better feeling when every day you look at these headlines to know that you are helping to address the root cause. You don't have to sit there and rail and point the finger and blame and feel more helpless and hopeless. You can take responsibility and you can be part of the solution.
And you can empower our kids to be part of the solution and give them the skills and tools they need. I mean, you want every child around the world to be taught how to choose love.
How
Am
to
I right?
choose love and how to have hope. I mean, these go hand in hand, and you really can't have one without the other. They are both so important.
So how do they find out more about you?
I welcome everyone who's listening to go to chooselovemovement.org and explore. We have programs for schools, homes, communities, foster care, prisons. We have so much. And, you can bring this into your home, start within yourself, but also share the message. This is a movement, and it's been very organic by word of mouth over the past 11 years, but we're now in 14,500 schools in 120 countries. It's growing like that. It's interesting because we have more and more social media and ways to get messages out, but still word of mouth. Our programming is mostly spread through referral and people talking to somebody else about it. How beautiful is that? So start talking to people, start asking the question, by the way, you all are responsible for your children's safety, health, and well-being, even when they're in school. This is a hard lesson that I found out after my son's death. So start asking questions at the school. See if they address the root cause of the pathway to violence with programming. This is how you do it. They should have a comprehensive program like Shine Hope or Choose Love that is not just in the school, but it's for homes and communities. We all have to be part of this. We can't just put it all on our teachers. We all have to work together to be part of the solution. So make sure they do. Don't just take a yes. Find out what it's called. Does it have a home component? Bring it into your home so you can start talking with your kids about it, because we're practicing these skills and tools all day long. Life is this beautiful opportunity that we get different ways of practicing these essential life skills because we get different scenarios thrown at us every day. So really get involved and have your kids watch you do it, because they're going to go, wow, yeah, mom, dad, they really care. They're really into this. They want to keep me safe. Our kids actually are losing confidence in our ability to keep them safe. Don't think it doesn't matter how young they are. They're thinking about it. They're having active shooter drills. So they're getting that part of it. Give them the other part. Give them the other part, the addressing the root cause. Help them develop fortitude and strength from within themselves, to have them choose love and not fear. That's a very fearful process. Give them love too. Help them choose it every day. So important. I'm so appreciative, Kathryn, of all that you do with Shine Hope. You have an incredibly powerful story and reasoning. And wow, is this just resonating all over the world? This concept of hope, it's inherent in every human being, just like love. My goodness, no wonder we're like besties.
I know. I mean, teaching hope and teaching love, super, super important. And it's things we take for granted, hope and love. And yet I feel that we're trained out of it, as children, and we've got to be trained back into it. ChooseLoveMovement.org. And like you say, parents modeling the behavior and also modeling the mistakes in the behavior. I mean, love and hope are processes. We're not, it's not easy. It's not an easy process. It's a simple, the formula is simple, but I would say it's not easy, and it takes work and effort. And like you say, the first step being courage, being courageous enough to be open and authentic with your kids and your community. And, go into your schools, bring this programming to your schools. If the teachers don't have time, volunteer to teach the classes, go into jails to teach it. after school programs. I mean, anyone can teach these skills. It's not a matter of not having enough time. We must have enough time for these skills. They're going to impact everything about our future. And with violence so high, with hopelessness so high, 57% of teen girls in the US alone persistently hopeless. I mean, these skills are more important than ever because we're teaching our kids the opposite, and we need to teach them how to love and to choose love. So this has been amazing. So inspiring you are to me. I've learned so much from you.
And I from you.
Every day I do.
Every day.
And it's even within our program, it's a process to shine hope and to choose love. And it's, a daily, and we do the work,
Do the work, and it's the best way to live. It's the best way to live your life to the fullest. You have one life. And yes, it takes a little bit of effort, but the other way does, it's painful. It's too painful. And you can use that pain to your benefit. This is what we want you to do.
Yeah. So please, bring the programming to your schools. ChooseLoveMovement.org. Learn more about Scarlett, one of the most inspiring people you will ever meet and learn about in your life. Really, really incredible. And Jesse and JT, love you both. Learned so much from both of you and the three of you, really. So thank you. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening in. And thank you for taking inspired action today to move the love movement forward, because it is a choice and you have the power to make the choice to choose love today. So thank you all for listening. Have a great day and keep shining. No matter what life brings, keep shining hope. So thank you all for listening in to the Hope Matrix podcast. We want to shine a light that hope is teachable, hope is measurable and teachable, and provide you with actionable insights for how you can start activating hope in your life today, and provide a framework so you can start talking about hope with other people and practice these skills together, because we are better with hope. Please feel free to check out theshinehopecompany.com, where we list all of our resources around how to hope. We have a lot of free programs for how to hope, including the 5-day challenge, our hope infographic with a lot of skills that showcase how to hope, and articles of how to incorporate hope into your life. We have the Hope Beat Weekly, which is a weekly newsletter that shares strategies for hope. We have a My Hope Story template, so you can write your own hope story today. Also, My Hope Hero, so we can share what our heroes are doing to activate hope in their lives. And this is especially good with youth, so they can start looking up to people that have overcome similar challenges to them and seeing how these heroes use the Shine Hope framework. We have a Hopeful Minds for Teens program, a Hopeful Minds overview, educator guides. We have a new evidence-based college course, so you can activate hope on the college campus. There are programs in the workplace, overview courses, 90-minute courses for learning the what, why, and how to hope. What I want you to know about hope is it's a skill. You've got to practice these skills to become hopeful. It's easy to fall into despair and helplessness when we deal with challenges in life, and it takes intentional work and practice to get to hope. And yet it is always possible. So no matter what life brings, keep shining hope. Thanks so much for listening in. Have an awesome day. And of course, I've got to add that this program is designed to assist you in learning about hope. It should not be used for medical advice, counseling, or other health-related services. I, Fred, the Shine Hope Company, and myself, Kathryn Goetzke, do not endorse or provide any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I am not a medical doctor. The information provided here should not be used for the diagnosis or treatment of any medical condition, and cannot be substituted for the advice of physicians, licensed professionals, or therapists who are familiar with your specific situation. Consult a licensed medical profession or call 911 if you are in need of immediate assistance. And be sure to know the crisis hotline, 988, if you are in need of support. Thanks a bunch for listening. Take good care of yourself and keep shining hope.